Hey, so you are about to read a Supreme Court case decision, Buford et al. V. Houtz et al. Um, I'm going to tell you how to get through this reading quickly. You can read the whole thing if you want, and actually, the whole thing isn't even there. I left out a couple sections. You can read all of it if you want, and if you want to do that, then just you can stop this video and go read it. But if you want to make it a little bit quicker and easier to understand, then here's what you can do. First of all, let me summarize the case. If you remember from the last lesson, when the railroad companies built train tracks throughout the West, the government gave them land in exchange for laying the tracks. And the idea was that they would sell that land in order to make money that they would then use to pay themselves for building the tracks. And so they did. And the way the government gave them the land was they called them sections of land, and they gave them like odd numbered sections of land. So kind of like a checkerboard. So, the railroad would own a square of land, and then public land, and then the railroad would own another square of land, and then public land, and so on, just like a checkerboard around the railroad lines. So when the railroad sold the land, if somebody bought, let's say, all of the land in a particular place from the railroad, they would actually own pieces of land surrounded by other pieces of land that the government owns. And so that's what this situation is in this court case. Some cattle ranchers had bought a bunch of property from a railroad, hundreds of thousands of acres, and mixed into their acres was even more hundreds of thousands of acres of public land, federally owned land. And and so they were running their cattle on all of that land, their land and the public land. And when other people wanted to run their animals on it, like sheep, and Houtz, they were sheep herders. The Buford was like, no, you can't run your sheep through my land in order to get to the public land. You're trespassing. And so, the sheep herders were like, well, there's no way for us to get to the public land without going through your land. So we're going to go through it. And that's where this case, that's why this went to court and eventually went to the Supreme Court of the United States. So it went to the Supreme Court of Utah, and then the Supreme Court of Utah agreed with the sheep herders, but the cattle ranch appealed it to the Supreme Court. So how to get through this quickly. What you're looking at is a Google Doc with comments from me. And so you think of those comments as like annotations. If you click on the comment, so like here's a comment, it'll actually highlight the section that I'm talking about. And so everything that you need to read is highlighted. You don't need to read any of this. You could skip right to the stuff that I've highlighted. And if you want to know why I highlighted it, look at my comment. So in this case, it's the first fact of the case, the second fact, the third fact, the fourth fact, the fifth fact, sixth fact, seventh fact, eighth, ninth, you get the idea, 10th. And then this is what the defendants are claiming. So the sheep herders are the defendants. The appellants are the cattle ranch. The defendants are the sheep herders. And then the court starts making, and this is what the Supreme Court does, they kind of talk through it. So the court interprets the claim of the appellants. So they're saying, no, so this is what you want, right? So they interpret it here. They summarize the situation, they summarize the whole situation, and at the end you'll see it seems pretty clear that they don't believe, that they're like, what? This doesn't seem right. Then they give their opinion, and then they give some history, and they give some more history, and then they state this principle that is really what drove the entire management of public land in the West for 150 years. Then they compare it to mining in the West, and mining when the West belonged to Mexico. and then they give their decision. And that's all you need to read. So it's not that much. Not only does it shorten it if you do that, but also if you look at my comments, it'll give you a little bit of guidance in terms of what you're reading. You still need to read. Like, I wouldn't go just by my comments, because you're going to get quizzed on the facts of the case, the details. And if this shows up on the CTA, you're going to have to know details as well in order to answer the questions. So read it, but you only need to read the parts that I highlighted, and you can use my comments to help you understand it.